You brought this up before we hit record, right? It's like, what action steps can you take? Welcome to season 3 of the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here with my new co-host, the wild online fitness and nutrition coach, Hailee Piendl, here inspiring each other to excellence in health, fitness, and business. Let's get fired up. Welcome, Hailee. I am so pumped that you said yes to being my co-host. I feel like you don't really know what you signed up for, though.
I think I do. I am so freaking stoked. If you guys didn't know, I was on Emily's podcast back in, what did you say, season 1?
Yeah, I
I think
can't believe
that
it's
was,
that long ago.
oh my God, I know. But you know what, the universe works in amazing ways, and I'm so stoked to be here as a part of your Fresh and Fired Up podcast because we align so well together.
Yes, God is good. I know. Hailee and I just had a conversation. I'm like, listen, I'm Catholic Christian. I'm going to be bringing up this stuff right out of the gates. And she's like, dude, I love that you're direct. So it's awesome.
Communication is key in all relationships in life. So,
I agree. And I love the fact, okay, we need to point out because we have listeners from all over the world. We're both Canadian, super proud of that.
oh
Not
yeah.
always proud of some of the things in our country. I think we could agree on that.
Feel like that's the case for every single country in the planet. Like no one's perfect. We're going to talk about perfection, by the way. And no
Yes.
country is perfect, but I'm pretty satisfied with living in Canada, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's been okay. I mean, we're the western side of the country, so go Westerners. Although I didn't grow up in the West. I grew up near Ottawa in Ontario. I
Oh, really?
converted to being
The
Albertan.
Burts.
The Burtons.
Converted to the Burtons. I'm a
Yeah.
I'm a couve.
Oh dear. Okay, there's a bunch of Albertans that are instantly judging you right now, just
I
so you know.
know, I know. I'm sorry, guys. I grew up here, my family's here, and I would probably move because the housing prices are so absurd.
I love
Um,
that practicality.
but I can't. So
Well, if you're always welcome to come visit, although I live in a extremely inconvenient location to get to. People are like, the joke is you live not even in the middle of nowhere, in nowhere. It's like no man's land.
oh, well, I
Like,
mean, the slow life is good too. I
it
kind of
is,
like the
right?
small town vibes.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Except for when it comes to international travel, because
Oh,
you're driving 5 hours to get to the Edmonton airport
oh
and
Lord.
then you're flying. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really good for learning to be resilient in travel because the travel days are always pretty long. Technically, we can drive to a spot, it's called Grand Prairie, and it's 2 hours from here. But then the flights are weird to coordinate because it's a small airport.
Yeah. And then it's also like you're getting back from an international flight and now you have to drive 5 hours to your house and you're already ornery and tired and it's 2 in the morning.
No, I never get ornery. I'm just full of joy all the time. Come on, Haley. What's your
Okay.
problem?
Okay. Yep. Yep. I believe it. I believe it.
No, this last time because I just got back from St. Louis, right? I was at the Women in Business workshop. Such a great seminar. I think it's the best women's conference I've ever been to.
You're
I
gonna have to
highly
send me the
recommend.
information for that. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, I will. It's put on by Emily Frisilla. She owns Paper and Plan Co. She's married to Andy Frisilla, the owner of First Form. So I know there's a lot of listeners on who will recognize that. But yeah, so I will send you info. But I highly recommend. But this is hilarious. So my flights ended up being, I think I ended up having a 19-hour travel day, which was better than the way down, which was 25 hours. It's ridiculous.
St. Louis, though?
Yeah. And then, well, it's just the way my flights went because one was delayed and then it changes your connector flight and all that stuff. But yeah, on my way back, we land in Edmonton and it's extreme heat warning. So make sure, you drink your water and you stay out of the sun. I walk into the airport. It's like hitting a wall of heat, probably like how it felt. You said you just got back from Vegas. It probably felt like
It
that.
was brutal.
Yeah.
Just
So I get in my car and I'm driving. I'm happy. It's good because the first 2 hours, AC's going. I'm listening to my podcast and my music. And in case you're wondering if I just listen to my own podcast, yeah, I totally just listen to myself. No, I'm kidding. It was actually different podcasts. I'm
I
such a
learned from
narcissist.
myself. I learned from myself
I just
because
learned from myself over and over again. No, but my AC died. The air conditioning just stopped all of a sudden. I had 3 more hours. I was like
No.
in a sweat box. And then it's highway driving. So it's like you're getting like wind blasted for like
And
3
it's like
hours.
hot air. Like it's hot air blowing in your face. Like it's not
Totally
even it's not even
not even
helpful.
refreshing. Yeah. So that was a good memories, really.
We'll look back on these days and be like, "Ah, that was so much fun, you
It
know?
was. It really was. And I know you said you had a blast in Vegas. It was just
I did.
awesome.
It was just very hot. And you know what? That's on me for going in the middle of summer.
You get cheap
I
flights
should
this
have,
time of year?
sorry.
Is it like you get cheap flights that like because of the time of year? Or
It
did you
wasn't
have an
even a cheap
event?
trip. It wasn't
Oh,
even cheap.
shoot.
I ended up spending like 2 grand for 4 days. It was just,
Oh,
and then the exchange rate right now is just whoop, out the
yeah.
window. But anyways, I'm gonna just forget about that. And it was a good trip. But yeah, it was very hot. It was like you step outside and you could only be outside for like 2 minutes before you needed to go into air conditioning because you're just breathing in this heat. You know what I mean?
Totally. Well, and I mean,
But
we're
they are
Canadian.
prepared.
I
They
feel
are
like
prepared.
Canadians are more cold adapted than hot
Yeah.
adapted, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of complaining going on.
No complaining. Come on, don't you know that this is my because I coach little kid gymnastics, like when I'm not doing 1,000 other things that I do, but I actually love doing it. And that's one of our code of honor items. It's like it's like item number 5 or something. It's like we stick to the no complaining rule, which means no complaining.
Okay, well, I
Put that one
wasn't
on your board,
complaining.
your whiteboard.
I was just very hot. But yeah, it was all in all, it was a really great time. I'm very glad that I got to experience it. I've never been to Vegas, and I think you have to go at least once. So,
That's awesome. I've only been there once, only for 2 hours in the airport. And it
speaking
was
of
just,
gymnastics, by the way, there was a show called The O by Cirque du Soleil.
oh, I've heard of it.
Phenomenal. Oh my God, the talent that I saw is just amazing. Phenomenal. Amazing show. Highly recommend through and through. Yeah. If
That's awesome.
you're ever there, please go there because I think that's the Cirque du Soleil that like is stationed there. So they have a bunch of time to practice. They're not like going from place to place and like setting up. So they have their stage, and the stage is amazing. They got their water pools, and then the stage comes up and then goes down, and then they're standing on the water. And oh, it was just phenomenal. I'm still
Oh, okay. I want to go. Yeah,
it
I'm
was
hooked.
great.
You've got me hooked. That being in the Cirque du Soleil was like my alternative life dream because
Yeah.
growing up, right? Like I did gymnastics from age 6 onward. And so it's a little bit of my backstory, I guess, right? And what did I do? Okay, age like 17 is when I got onto the Canadian national team for aerobic gymnastics. And then I competed basically for 5 years on that team, like different countries in the world, got to travel a lot, super fun. Did world championships in China and Germany, competed in France and Mexico and all over North America. So really like awesome experiences. But at that time, I was like, I just want to be a gymnast and then like join the Cirque du Soleil. And
Yeah.
that so going to watch it just makes me like, yay, this is so amazing. But then
Yeah.
I decided, you know what? My husband won me over, got married, had 4 kids, became doctor, all those other alternative realities.
Yeah, life just happens, and you know what? I just be grateful for where you're at. Like you have four, I think you have four beautiful kids,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
honestly, you're living the dream.
Amazing. Yeah. 2 girls, 2 boys. It's very fun.
I
Yeah, we
bet.
got lots going on always. But I want to share some more because you guys can go back and listen to season 1 episodes. I share a lot of my backstory and it's like intermixed within 2 full seasons of the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. So you're welcome to go and listen to all those episodes if you'd like. And you can go back and listen to the one that Hailee's on. I believe it's episode 50, I think. But you'll see her name. You can check it out. It's on women's hormonal health. Really awesome. I got so much good feedback from that episode because talking about topics that I feel like women don't get to delve into as much to really help them with their hormonal health, with their menstrual cycles, because it's a huge issue for
Oh yeah,
productivity if your
no one,
menstrual cycle sucks.
yeah, and no one talks about it, and I feel like we're just kind of either told that we're crazy or just to like suck it up. But there's a biological thing that's going on, right? And it's not about like trying to change our day-to-day life, but just being aware of like what is happening so you can take the said steps that make you feel better, because we don't want to feel like crap all the
Yeah.
time.
Action steps. You brought this up before we hit record, right? It's like what action steps can you take? And so I want to delve into a little bit more of your background. You were born and raised in Vancouver, or did you move there?
No, I was born and raised here. I feel like that's kind of not common anymore. I feel like there's a lot of people who just moved here, and if you ask, where are you from? It's very, very seldom you hear someone say, "Oh, I was born and raised here." But yes, I was born and raised here. Not
For you.
specifically Vancouver, but I was in New West and Burnaby now. So the burbs. It's much calmer than downtown Vancouver. If any of you guys have ever been here, it's a different world, I feel. But yeah, I was born and raised here. Then I went to school actually for accounting. So it's kind of 180 from what I'm doing now. I still kind of help my parents. They have a business here in fish processing. So I do still help them with accounting stuff, but I did go to school for it. And then did a 180 switch. There were some things that happen, you hit rock bottom and you just want to completely switch your life over. And that's kind of what happened. And I've always had a very big passion for health and fitness because I had my own struggles. Went through some eating disorders, a few
Okay,
different
that's
ones.
what I was going to ask. Are you going to share a bit more on that? Because I know, was that part of like kind of hitting rock bottom for you?
For sure, for
Because I know
sure.
you're an athlete as well.
Yeah, I played.
Don't gloss over those. We want all the juicy
Okay.
details. Come on, Hailee.
I'm like, my brain is going everywhere. I don't know
I
which way
know.
to go. Yeah, so I played not professional, but high
You can
level.
just add that in. It's fine. Nobody
I'm
knows.
a professional athlete. I played, yeah, hockey and lacrosse for the better part of my like teenage years. And nothing was any, no eating disorder behaviors back
But
then.
sorry, by the way, those two sports just scream like don't mess with me. Like don't mess with this chick.
Oh,
She plays freaking
lacrosse.
lacrosse.
I played boys too, like with the guys.
You're
Um,
so intense. Okay, just throwing this in there. I played rugby and I was on the wrestling team in high school, so I feel like teamed up, we got hockey, lacrosse, wrestling, rugby. We could like hit
there's
the
no
crap out
volleyball
of some
in here.
No, represent. I'm so proud of you right now.
There's contact. There's got to be contact for it to be fun. Yeah,
I agree 100%.
for sure. But yeah, on top of that, like those sports aren't very physique oriented, so I feel like that was also a great thing for me just to grow up in, and like you're not, decided on or dictated by your body.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any kind of disordered eating back then, but when I did go through puberty, if you guys don't know, what happens naturally is your body becomes more insulin resistant to put on some weight, so you can enter your reproductive years. So it is very normal for you to gain some body fat and gain some weight. And this plays into our sports. Usually this is the time where women are stronger than men. And that reflected obviously in sports because there was also a time where, the guys grow up and now I'm no longer able to go play with them because they are now stronger than me. But in
Right.
that weird transition of puberty, usually girls are stronger and, just more developed.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if you guys didn't know, then that's what happens. Your body does put on more body fat, and that's totally natural. However, I remember this time so vividly, and this is no shade to like my parents or anything, but it was a catalyst into the remaining years of like my eating disorder and stuff. But I was sitting at the kitchen table doing my homework, and my parents were kind of getting a little bit concerned about my weight, and I wasn't overweight, but I was putting on some, body fat.
Hmm.
I wasn't super active at that time because I was in a weird transition between sports. And they were just kind of commenting, hey, like, why don't you choose this in terms of eating? Or, hey, why don't you go for a run or something like that? And me being a very perfectionist kind of person took that to a very extreme where their intentions were very wholesome. And what I think I didn't realize was they grew up with the diet culture and they thought that was the right way to do things. So, no, there's no blaming going on, but that's what they learned and that's what they projected. So I took things to the very extreme. I went on like 1,200 calorie diet. I was working out, God, probably like 2 hours a day, doing cardio, strength training. I got to a pretty low weight to where it was the other side of concerning. So now my family was concerned on the kind of eating disorder side, and I definitely was more anorexic. I would be very scared of food or going out to eat. I'd lie about eating. Like there's a bunch of things that I would do that was very abnormal, but I thought when you're in it, you're like, this is normal. Like I'm fine. I'm, just being disciplined when it's not disciplined. It's
Hmm.
just very extreme. So I spent a few years in that, just restricting very much, getting to a very low weight. And I was very scared of putting on any kind of weight because I felt like, that was regressing. But I had lost my period as well, which was very concerning. Not at the time, but after learning these side effects of, losing your period for an extended period of time, I lost it for 4 years and I would have hair loss. I developed psoriasis. My bones definitely took a hit, in terms of bone density and a host of other things. I couldn't sleep. I was very anxious. All of these things started to accumulate and manifest. So after 4 years, I kind of hit my rock bottom in terms of feeling really crappy. I just was not really loving life at all, and I wanted to have a little bit more purpose. So I gained some weight, started to gain some weight, and I kind of developed a more of a binge eating habit where I would kind of cope with my emotions with food. And that definitely contributed to me gaining some weight and getting my period back. But then there was another issue of me not being able to cope with my emotions with better mechanisms rather than just food. So I got my period back, and then I had to start this whole other journey about binge eating. um, which was about 3 years. I think I was about 20 when that happened. And up until like 23, I had healed from binge eating. And that was just getting really deep into why I was doing it. I think we can be very scared of not having control. And I definitely was scared of not having control around food. And then obviously gaining some weight and not being able to stop that is also very scary for a woman too, in this day and age of thin is pretty. Um, but it wasn't even me controlling food or needing to be on a diet, or it was my diet that or food that was any kind of help for me. It was me needing to learn what my coping mechanisms were and why I did it. So it was more mental focused. And that's a big reason why I now teach my clients. Like a lot of my clients come into my program like, oh, I thought this was just going to be a workout program and nutrition guidelines when it's not at all. It's a lot of mindset work because that's usually what's keeping us stuck. It's your perfectionism, your all or nothing mindset, and all of these other things that are
Yeah.
keeping you stuck, in the same place. So that's kind of my background and why I feel so passionate about helping women in the same exact spot, because it can be very frustrating just not knowing how to do that and get out of it. So it's
Yeah,
kind of
it's
my background. Yeah.
the work you do is phenomenal and it's so necessary. And when we chose to title this podcast Aspire to Excellence, this plays into it because it's so much about the mindset.
Yeah.
And I was just looking up some definitions here because I think that the point you made about perfectionism, right, is there can be, aspiring to a high level is important.
Mhm.
And that being said, I think there's a big distinction in the definition. So I want to read the definition of perfection. Okay. The condition, state, or quality of being free or as free as possible from all flaws or defects. It sounds so negative
Mhm.
versus the definition of excellence, which is what I think we should be aspiring to, is the quality of being outstanding or extremely good at something.
Yeah.
You could have an outstanding feature or quality, and that to me that's a strength, and you can build on your strength, and we're all going to have weaknesses and imperfections, and we can learn to operate in community to help each other with our strengths and weaknesses. They're always going to be there. And so I was thinking about what you said, how the mindset of extreme perfectionism, and you talked about control, and I think all of that plays into it. Thinking about the perfectionistic female body image, and obviously, like, we get in inundated by the market, by commercial advertising. All of these things are so targeted, like multiple companies, multiple industries that are banding basically the forces of this evil together to get inside women's heads. And so I think being aware of it is the first step. And I wanted to read some of the definitions. I think definitions play a big role in how we think about things. So listen to this one. This just hits home. Physical appearance perfectionism has been associated with many negative body image outcomes, such as disordered eating symptoms, which you already spoke to, appearance social anxiety. Think about how that feels when you walk into a room and you're trying to like network as an entrepreneur, even appearance and body shape dissatisfaction. This plays a huge role. This ties into my company, Frexy, and finding like the right fit for your clothes, even. Like, think about when you look in the mirror and you're like just not happy with your shape or appearance and how much that can affect your mood for the day.
Or like the number on your jeans, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
on your shirt, like even
Yeah,
looking at that
totally.
number and judging yourself for it because it's
Mhm.
based on some other beauty standard that the society made for us, right?
Yeah, totally. Unhealthy weight control behaviors, low appearance self esteem, high impression management, and high appearance management. So, again, trying to like create control and but it's just it's a path. Oh man, it's as you would know, it's a
Yeah.
path that is self-defeating, I
It's
think.
funny too. It's really funny. Not funny, but in a context.
Ironic kind of thing.
Ironic, yeah, that I did get to what quote unquote perfect was in my mind, and I felt so insecure. So
Wow.
insecure. Way more than I do now at a higher body fat or like whatever anyone would consider not. Well, like I'm in shape, obviously, but it wasn't what I determined as
Yeah.
perfect at the time. And I did get there, and like I could not wear anything that I wanted because I remember this too, a little story time for you. I almost skipped out on school because it was summertime, it was blistering hot, and I could only wear shorts and a t-shirt, and I had veins going down like e- everywhere in like my hamstrings,
Oh my
and I was
goodness.
so insecure about it because people would comment on it and be like, "Whoa, what the heck is that?" And I almost skipped out school because I'm just like, I can't deal with this. I
Oh
look
wow.
like I'm so scrawny and I just don't want to go to school. So even if you do get to a really low body fat, you're still not going to be confident because that's not what's going to get you. That isn't confidence,
No.
right?
And
Yeah.
when we're talking about being able to operate in excellence and be a high performer, because I think that really ends up like we all want to be able to give back. We all want to be able to essentially live life to the fullest in whatever our vocations are, right? And so thinking about even I feel like women forget maybe or they don't know or they let the mindsets eat away at them and remembering that women versus men the body fat percentage should be different like women they need more essential body fat than men because of childbearing and hormonal functions and so there are ranges that you want to be hitting, and that could look different on different body types. So I want to explain a little bit further because I think it's such an important piece. So if we look at total body fat percentage, we're looking at between 12 and 15% for men, for like young men,
Yeah.
and between 22 and 28% for young women. So that's going to look like more weight on a woman compared to a man.
Yeah. And if you
And
guys are serious, go look at pictures because pictures are a
yes.
great representation and you will be surprised at how much like body, like no one has abs. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, they're just hidden. No.
They're hidden, but that's healthy. That's what you're supposed to
Yeah.
like. You don't have to get to a place where you have striations everywhere and your abs are popping. That's
Because
not.
here's the other thing. Think about even the athletes that are in an industry like bodybuilding, for example, or like form and figure, what is it? Like Miss Fitness, those type of not athletics, what do you call it? Is it considered athletic? Like it's like a
It's a sport, but
sport. Okay.
yeah.
It is a sport. I didn't know what it was considered. Either way, whatever. If that is something that you like to do and you're doing, amazing. But realize that anyone who's not in the bodybuilding industry, realize that they don't maintain that state all year round. They have off seasons, they have in seasons. it is hard on your body. That sport is hard on
Oh
your
yeah.
body.
Your
But
mental
either
health as well.
it is. But either way, if you're looking at pictures of someone who won a bodybuilding contest, know that they don't stay in that state all the time. I think
Yeah.
that's a misconception that people have.
Oh, for sure. And if someone comes to me too with like a body inspiration or an ideal body and it's someone who's walking on stage, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we've got some mindset work to do.
Yeah.
This is
Because
not
like
really
unless you're
good.
training for that specifically, right? Like if you're
Yeah,
training for form and figure,
yeah, and if that's you, like don't come to me because I'm
yeah, yeah.
getting
Yeah, and that's fine, but I think it's an important thing to like distinguish between is like, well,
yeah,
what's your goal and are you looking to just feel I don't know if the right word is happy, like fulfilled
yeah.
and feel good about yourself and your self-worth on the regular and what's going to be best for your health and your ability to be a high performer.
Mhm.
And that's going to you're going to look at well, we need a certain level of lean muscle mass. Like Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, she was just at the event that I was at and she talks about we don't have an overweight problem, we have an under muscled problem.
Yeah, I've heard that
You've
so many
heard
times.
that?
It's so true. It
It
is so true.
is. So
Yeah.
yeah, you could be sitting at 25% body fat and but what's the level of muscle that you like the amount of muscle you have on your body to go with that because that's going to make a huge difference in your hormonal function and how you feel.
Oh yeah, hormonal function, longevity, and like women, it's inevitable. You're all gonna go through menopause, and that's gonna really
Inevitable.
deplete. Yeah, it's really gonna deplete your bone density and your muscle mass because your estrogen levels are just gonna dip after menopause. So it is so crucial that you do build a substantial amount of muscle to maintain functionality and balance and mobility throughout your later years. So like taking care of your future self rather than just,
Yeah.
you know, oh, my pant size is too big. You know what I mean? Like it's just there's such a bigger view of it that you need to look at rather than just fitting into some small social norm, you
Yeah,
know.
and I had this discussion with my husband and I'm not sure how all women listening to this will feel about this because obviously it's important for us to operate in our bodies for us. But if you are in a committed relationship with a man, there is an aspect of you wanting to, like please your man. And I'm not saying at all that I'm like, oh, I make all the decisions because my husband wants me to do this. That's not what I'm saying. But there is an element that I'm like, oh, I want to look good and sexy and attractive to him. And he's so fascinated. He's like, I feel like so many times when women drop to an extremely low body weight, they do it because of something that was drilled into their head by other women or by like the media, not their direct partner. Like at no point in our 17 years together has my husband ever been like, you look overweight. Like from the
Yeah.
standpoint of, I mean, I've always been like athletic, right? But even like pregnant, like fully pregnant. And as a woman, you can be like, I feel kind of big, and round. And he's like, oh my gosh, you are so hot. Like
Yeah.
you are
Well, you're
so,
bearing his children.
well,
Like
that's
I
what I
feel like
mean.
yeah.
So like even if even if you're looking at it from like a perspective of a man, I'm just like saying it for a different viewpoint
Yeah.
is like, they're like, no, we think you're super hot right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
You're making all of these, I think overthinking is a huge part of it too. Just like kind of getting the wheels running inside your brain. You're kind of nitpicking apart things that you don't like
Yeah.
about yourself, but there are so many other things that you can look at that, everyone else sees.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, a same thing with like the gym. A lot of women say to me like, "Oh, everyone's looking at me. Or I don't want to take my shirt off. I don't want to train in a sports bra because like everyone's going to judge me." But everyone is so preoccupied with themselves that no one gives a flying F about you, you know?
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, right? Well, I think too, like looking at what are some of the action steps we can take because or maybe that we have taken. We can share our stories and then maybe some
Did you
thoughts
want
that
to
we
share
have.
your story? Because I'm sure no one has.
We don't, ain't nobody got time for that. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Okay.
No, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, well, I can give some, like, I already started to say some of it, right? Like, starting
Yeah.
out as a gymnast from a young age. I actually did figure skating before that for a couple years, which is
Oh,
funny. And then discovered the sport of gymnastics and was like, oh my goodness, I'm in love. And then I don't know. I just love flipping. I'm extremely creative and artistic, so I love choreographing routines. If I wasn't a gymnast, I would have been a dancer for sure because the dance elements of gymnastics were some of my favorite parts. And it's funny, I actually tried out for So You Think You Can Dance Canada in Toronto, like
Really?
back in the
Oh,
day.
no
Yeah.
way. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It was fun. Yeah, that was good times. But anyway, so yeah, I love the dance and creativity. So I ended up like it was kind of funny up like how it played out because at the time when I was training as a younger individual, I did entrepreneurial things even as a little gymnast where I was like, yeah, I'll cut all the music for the team and I would like cut the music and trade it for training time and like choreograph routines for the team and oh my goodness, like so much crazy fun stuff like that. But I did that for many years and from an educational background, I did it all through school and I have way too many degrees. It's just one of those things. This is just how it went. After high school, I went to Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, and I took a degree, a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a Bachelor of Kinesiology honors. I did two degrees at the same time. Don't ask me why. Speaking of the like obsessive overachiever, right? And that was when I was competing all over the world. So I did crazy things at that time. Like I competed at Pan Am's in Mexico. And I remember studying and I made finals, which was amazing. So I got sixth place. I have two national golds for Canada as a gymnast. And I would do crazy things like studying for my organic chemistry exam in Mexico between competing. And then I'd get back and like have to write the exam the next day. I did not sleep through university. We would train from 9 p.m. to midnight because that's when we could get our training time at the local gymnastics club where I was doing university. And then I'd be up to go to my 8 a.m. biology class and I'd be like falling asleep in the front row. And I wasn't much of a class skipper either. Like, I thought you actually had to go to all the classes, which apparently that's not true for everyone. But yeah, and then I ended up going to chiropractic college in Toronto. That was a 4 year degree. Had my first, well, in that time, got married to my husband who followed me to Toronto and also became a chiropractor. He's amazing. That's a whole other story.
Oh,
We've known each other since we were little kids, grew up in the same hometown near Ottawa.
oh,
And
that's so sweet.
yeah, yeah, we've got lots of backstory going on there.
I
There's
love
jokes for days, but it's been good. It's been a good run. So yeah, that's where we're at with okay, so where was I? Sorry. We're at the part where I was in chiropractic college,
chiropractic.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then my intern year, the fourth year of chiropractic college, we had our first baby. So my daughter Violet, who's 11 now, she's a sweetheart. I had her and I still had 3 months left of chiropractic college and I had to write my licensing exams. So that was an intense time because I basically took like 2 weeks off and was right back into the clinic so I could finish my internship. But we have good memories of Violet being a little newborn and like me and my friends from chiropractic college in the clinic, like just passing her around, like whoever wasn't with a patient. Like I have this vivid memory of my friend Justine, who I'm still close with. She's awesome. Uh, I come out of a treatment room and she's just sitting there with like Violet in one arm like drinking a coffee and like taking patient notes on the computer. Like it's hilarious. Good example of operating in community because without my friends, it was Jenna, Justine, and Kelty were the main ones that just made it possible for me to finish chiropractic college because we like asked for special permission to like bring the baby in all the time. But yeah, so it's good times. And
Awesome.
then we ended up living in Toronto for 3 more years after that, and then bought our clinic out in Peace River, Alberta. That was also a crazy time because my husband still had a year left of school, but the clinic owners that were selling were like giving us a better deal and also like we need to sell right away, like there was urgency, so we were either going to miss the opportunity, but we both felt really compelled, like we really actually just felt like we came and visited to check out the practice. And we both, this is going to sound kind of hilarious because we moved to Peace River, but we're in the hotel after like looking at the clinic and driving around the town and we like prayed about it. We both woke up the the next morning just feeling so much peace, which is kind of funny. So much peace about this is our next step. Like this is where God wants us to be. And so we just like had to do it and we had to make it work. So it was all really quick. I moved from Toronto to Peace River in a matter of like 6 weeks. It was so fast. We made the decision. John stayed and was finishing out his intern year in chiropractic college. And I had just had our second daughter. So she was only like 2.5 months old. And then Violet was three and a half by that point. And then yeah, that was a tough year. My dad, right at the same time, my dad got diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor. I grew up in a family with my three siblings, so two older sisters and a younger brother, and then my parents. Amazing family. I'm just so blessed and thankful for them. Same with John's family. We have really awesome families. But it was a blind side. My dad getting diagnosed. I was really, really close with my dad. We loved water skiing, so I was like his ski buddy.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, it was a tough time because as soon as I took over the clinic here in Peace River, he actually passed away 2 weeks after. I had to fly back to Ontario. And I had just hired my first staff. Like, think about like learning through adversity, right? I learned
Yeah.
a lot of lessons
Brilliant.
that year. We had his funeral and I had to fly back because I had a new employee starting to work for me like the next
Think
day.
that's a huge thing too. Also,
Yeah.
just recognize too, like my parents own their own business, and I've had to watch my mom go through the same sort of thing as you did. Like, you can't take a day off. You know what I mean? Like you have to show up for your company, you have to show up for your employees, but then you're going through this, your dad just passed away and you're going through this grief and all of this, but you're not really allowed to take some time off,
Yeah.
so the resilience that it takes to do that is just so eye-opening. So
Yes, I'm just so thankful for the grace of God. Like that,
yeah.
I wouldn't have got through it without that. Yeah, he is so good. But anyway, so yeah, John visited back and forth within that year, and we ended up getting through it. There was lots of lonely nights. There was lots of tears shed in that year. And if I can encourage anyone who's maybe going through grief or in the season of adversity, it's like keep the faith and you'll get through it, right? And you end up stronger on the other side. I learned so many lessons that year. And thankfully, John was able to move out here. We tag team the clinic as we had more babies because then we had our two sons out here in Peace River. And now we have four. They're currently 11, 8, 6, and 3. Our household is chaotic, crazy, and totally awesome. I love it. I'm a huge advocate for this generation. I mean, if you're like, I don't want to have kids, that's fine. I'm not like gonna badger you about it. But I will be an advocate for if you want to have kids, they are a joy. And I am so ridiculously thankful for
I
them.
so want to have kids. The thing that I'm most looking forward to, you can probably relate to this, but like kids are so funny with their imaginations, and
Yes.
like I can't wait for my kids to get into a little scruffle, and then me and my husband like giggle about it later while we're trying to like discipline them, and then we're like laughing because it's so funny. Like
Oh yeah, there are some hilarious moments for sure. And I feel like we need to do an episode because okay, so yeah, we need to do an episode at some point about like how you handle a household of multiple children
oh yeah.
because we just started this behavioral system that we use. I'm just going to call it that for now. We'll do a future episode. Stay tuned. And it works so ridiculously well. I'm telling you, if you're a parent or if you're wanting to be a parent someday and you're like, this seems crazy. How do I manage it? I will tell you systems. You run it just like a business, baby.
Just like a business. Everything is a business, there's
Totally.
principles in life and you just apply them everywhere and it works.
100%. 100%. I mean, business life is crazy. So it's not actually predictable, but it is possible. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
then, yeah, since then, COVID hit 2020 and the government shut our clinic down here in Peace River for, I think it was 8 weeks. And it was a crazy time. I was pregnant with our fourth at that time. And we just kind of hit this mode where John ended up going back. So my husband's name is John, if you are new to the podcast. But yeah, John ended up going back to the clinic and being the full-time doc, because during COVID, when everyone was like crazy and we didn't know what was going on, he's like, you're pregnant. There's no way. If this is like a crazy virus that's going to mess up your pregnancy, like I'm going into the clinic. I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. Like,
Protect me.
right. He protected me. He's amazing. And so he ended up just working a lot more in the clinic and I was home with the kids. I actually got hired by a company at that point to do online business coaching for other chiropractors. And I did that for a year. That was really fun. But in the meantime, I knew it wasn't like the thing that I wanted to do next. And we both were kind of getting this feeling like I wasn't going to end up coming back to the clinic full time. I wanted to be able to do something that I could work from home. And I mean, what I'm doing now isn't necessarily always going to be work from home because, it's going to grow. But I always had this alternative dream to start a clothing company. And it was one of those things, I think it's that creative side of my brain, and I just absolutely love it. So, my husband has been the most supportive person who was just like, you have to do this. I have all my creative ideas written down, and I sketchbook things and I sketch out the designs and what I'm going to develop. And so, ended up March 2023 nailing down the name of my current company, Frexy. And at March 2023, all I had was the name, Frexy. And I trademarked the name in Canada and the US. And I was like, all right, here we go. I want to do women's clothing. I've been an athlete my whole life. I've been a professional for the last 10 years. I've always been broad shouldered and muscular. And I'm trying to fit into professional dress wear jackets and I can't move. Like I'm like stuck or I'm buying
I feel that.
oversized,
I
right?
feel
So that was the inspiration behind my jacket company, Frexy. So I just worked like very intensely over the course of 9 months and was able to launch the company by November 24th, 2023, which is kind of hilarious because once I calculated that it was 9 months, I'm like, oh, apparently Frexy's my fifth baby because it requires about as much time, right?
yeah.
It requires a lot of nurturing. But then December, we did pre orders. Mid-December, I was actually shipping my first orders, and now it's been about 7 months since the company's been running. I absolutely love it, and that's where we're at. That brings us to current day. And then the
What's your
podcast has been in between, like the last
yeah,
2 years, basically.
yeah. What's your vision for Frexy, if you can tell us all?
Oh, the big picture vision is
Yeah, big
inspire.
picture. Let's
Yeah,
think
big
big.
picture vision is inspire women to excellence, which we already brought up on the intro of this podcast, even like really focusing in on inspiring each other to excellence. It's interesting because the nuts and bolts of the mission behind doing that and bringing it back kind of like to the clothing industry, it's to clothe millions of women in strength and dignity. And it's interesting if you know the Bible, that actually references a verse in Proverbs 31. And what I love about it is if you've never read Proverbs 31, you should read it. It's a whole chapter about a businesswoman. Like she's an entrepreneur and she's amazing. So huge inspiration there. But I loved how it's like strength, as in like be strong, be a strong woman. That is such a good thing. It's not about being the skinniest version of yourself. It's about being the strongest version of yourself. That's how you're going to be able to operate at your highest level. And so that's the strength piece. And then the dignity is like dignity means worthy of honor and respect. When you treat each other, when you honor others and you treat them with respect, that's what they're going to do for you too. And that's how you're going to be able to operate with your greatest expression of love in this world. And
Yeah,
so that's really like the big picture behind Frexy.
I love that. And in terms of just like me being one of probably like your ideal like clientele,
I'm going to
just
get you in a
feeling,
jacket. I got to send you one.
yes, please, just feeling like heard and like valued too. Because you go to the store and it's just, the standards are based on smaller people and like you feel just kind of too big and it kind of plays into like you can correct me if you're wrong if I'm wrong, but like your bigger picture of making strong women feel more heard and more abundant, like having these types of clothing more abundant in the
Mhm.
fashion industry, because there's nothing. Like there's only
Yeah.
the only other one that I can think of is you've probably heard of them, like fit jeans or something.
Yeah, fit jeans they focus on denim, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's
denim.
interesting. No,
Yeah.
go ahead. Mhm.
like the denim of like, you probably have the same
Yes.
issue of like I'll go to Levi's and the waist is huge, but it fits my butt.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just now I have to wear a belt and I don't
Yeah.
want to.
You get it. You get a huge waist gap. No, that's also hashtag future goals, Frexy, to add pants to the pantsuit for
Yeah.
like so you have like a full blazer pantsuit. So this is niche in the sense of, obviously there's tons of athleisure wear companies out there, which is awesome. That's great. But as soon as you are like, I need a more elevated look because I got to go to a conference, or I work in an office building, or I work in corporate sales. Right now, a lot of real estate agents, lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, they're who are buying our jackets because
Yeah.
they're like they're fit, ambitious women who stay in good shape.
Yeah.
And the mold that they have to fit is either like toothpick European model,
Mhm.
or like there's plus sizes.
Yeah.
So what about if you are an athletic frame person? And
Yeah.
that's where Frexy comes in.
There's a lot of those too, because I think it also translates. You were talking about your past and how ambitious you were and just the standards you held to yourself. So I think there's a lot of women who were like athletes or really into like a sport growing up and who are now entrepreneurs because, again, principles, like it just kind of translates
Yeah.
it's later in life, and I feel the exact same. Like I always took everything very seriously and with like purpose. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with my 110%, right? So like that applies to my fitness, it applies to my business and everything else I do in my relationship. So, the people who are entrepreneurial are typically those kind of people too.
Hence why we're having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Really. Right? Like you end up finding each other. I love it. You end up finding each other. But I feel like, okay, so I want to delve into a little bit before we wrap up today because you kind of gave your backstory, but do you want to give a bit more detail on what you're doing now? Or we could actually do next episode on that.
You know what? I'm open to whatever. How long has this been?
I don't know. We've been like maybe 40 minutes,
We
45
can,
minutes.
okay, we can just like do,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's do next episode. So, okay, so let's dive into hearing more about what you're doing and how you're helping women on the next episode of season 3 of the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. We're also going to talk about decisiveness some because I think that's a gooder. So, don't miss next week's episode and make sure that if you haven't subscribed to the show, do it now. Here's your chance. Make sure you leave a rating or a review. And if okay, I've had people reach out to me not knowing how to do that. If you'd like to leave us a review and you're not sure how to do it on Spotify or Apple, like reach out to one of us. Our contacts are in the show notes and we can help you through the process. And in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.